Welcome to How to Study the Psalms. Now tonight we are going to be using Logos version 7. So if you are still on 6, most of the webinar you're going to be having no problems with. We are going to use some features that are new, some that are old, and even some Logos Now features. So tonight's topics include the introduction. We're going to talk about how to find books on the Psalms in your library. We'll discuss briefly some recommended but not required resources. Then we're going to kind of overview the whole process, which will be these next steps, and that is how to find out more about the authors of the Psalms, the types of Psalms or genre. We'll be looking at the structure of the Psalms, the language of the Psalms. We'll show you how to create a custom guide to study the Psalms, how to find additional cross-references, how to dig deeper into the meaning of the text, how to pray through the Psalms, and also how to apply the Psalms. And with this webinar, we're going to include a sermon from Psalm 103 just to show you how we make that connection from our study to a message. So for those of you who are new to the Learn Logos webinar, let me tell you what you can expect tonight. First, we're going to provide training for Logos Bible software. That is our first primary objective. Second, we're going to provide training so you can study the topic for yourself. There's no way in the next hour or so that I can just give you everything you need to know to study the Psalms. It's a huge topic. Multiple books have been written. Lives have been spent studying the Psalms and just scratching the surface. But what you will get tonight is some excellent training so you can go deeper into the Psalms yourself. Now, along the way, we will share some biblical insights related to the topic. We're also going to provide a personal book or manual to equip yourself and others. Now, this personal book is included with the purchase of the webinar. And here it is. As you can see, all the sections are included, 1 through 14. Now, what makes the personal book so useful is we have everything here, all the notes. So your collections in here, the background, the bibliographies, the buy it links, the search links, everything that I'll be discussing tonight will be in these notes. It can be converted to a personal book and embedded inside Logos. So very, very handy. Now, the webinar at times is going to be fast-paced. We're going to include a lot of information to increase the training value. Now, some items you will be able to follow along with no problem based on your own personal skill with Logos. Others at times, you're just going to sit back and want to watch. We're going to record all the webinars, and we're going to edit the webinars, and then you can download it and watch it as often as you want. So the webinar is available for pre-order at the $4.99 price, and then after 2 weeks, the price will go up to $7.99. You can pre-order at LearnLogos.com/buy webinar. I mentioned before that 4, 5, and 6 is still available for training, but now 7 is available as a pre-order, and you can pre-order that at LearnLogos.com/Logos7. Now, there's 3 ways to get the training delivered to you in the end. There is the download-only option for $55. There is the 32 gigabyte USB only. We now are using 32 gigabyte versus 16 with the Logos 6. That's $65. And then we have the both option. This is handy to have a backup. In case you lose the USB, you can still download. That's $70. Now, the plan is to produce 1,000 videos. It's about 40 hours of training. And here's what we've been doing. Since September 1st, we've been releasing videos, and we've been releasing them every Monday night. You will be getting videos all the way until we complete the training around December 1st. Now, on December 1st, then the download links will be available and the USBs will ship. In the meantime, as we upload them to the website, they're going to be streaming only. Now, you can log in anytime 24/7 to access the videos, but they're not downloadable at this point. So just be aware of how we're going to move through the beta process. But it's a nice pace with new videos every couple hours, every week. You'll be able to grow with the Logos, and all the videos are being done from scratch, taking into account all the variety of changes that Logos has made in the tool. Also, I'm going to be releasing right before Christmas how to study the Bible and prepare a message with your computer. This is totally separate from the Logos 7 training. It's going to be 200 pages. It's a printed book, 14 chapters, and those who pre-order will also get the ebook with it. That's available for $13.99. It's going to retail for $19.99. Also, this book is going to have videos associated with this, but it's going to be different videos than Logos 7. It's going to include videos from other Bible software programs as well. So we're going to include Accordance, BibleWorks, Word Search, and Logos at different points throughout the book. So I'm very excited to finally take all that I've been doing and put it in here. You can see the table of contents at LearnLogos.com/digital sword. You can see how we're going to organize the chapter and walk you through the process. So this is not your typical preaching book, because what I'm doing is really three things. I'm first going to teach you how to study the Bible. And so there's going to be hermeneutics, exegesis, all that for the layperson as well as for the preacher and the pastor. Then we're going to actually have very specific practical exercises for the Old and New Testament. So you're going to develop a sermon throughout the book. And then we have these training videos to supplement as well to use your computer. So I'm very excited with this new resource. The 2016 live training events can be found at LearnLogos.com/events. You can email us some suggestions at webinars@LearnLogos.com. Now, our schedule that's coming up pretty soon is our next webinar, October 3rd, Who is the Word of the Lord? Then October 24th, How to Study the Spiritual Disciplines. November 14th, Understanding the Problem of Evil, Suffering, and Persecution in the Bible. And then December 5th, How to Study the Proverb. Let's get started and jump right in. So let me go back to the Logos Bible Software Program, and let's begin first with what's in your library. Now, this is a simple rule that all of you can do, and let's do it together so we can see all the books and resources that you have on the Book of Psalms. So before you go and buy any new books, let's see what you have already. So let's go to Tools on the main menu, and then click the first option, Collections. So Tools, Collections. Now, the name of the collection is going to be Psalms. I think I've already created this one, so I'm going to just select it. So in that first box is where you name the collection, type in Psalms. Then for the rule, very straightforward, it's title, Psalm. Notice I'm using the single, not the plural, because Logos is smart enough to use both. Notice there's no space between the title, the colon, or Psalm. Then there is a space, and then in all capital letters, or, then another space, subject, Psalms. Now, this will find everything related to Psalms, and based on the size of your library, you'll see more or less resources than mine. Now, this is going to happen. I'm going to give you the option. You'll notice below that I have these fragments. The Qumran scrolls are in here. If you want that, then just leave it here. If you want to remove that, then I recommend modifying the rule as follows. Put in a minus sign, and then put in type, then colon, then Bible. And this will remove all the Bibles, all the fragments, all the Qumran, etc. And so now your new rule is type Psalm, space, all caps, or space, subject, Psalms, space, minus type, Bible. Again, that's up to you whether you want to include this last part. Always remember that minus type Bible must come at the end of the rule in order for that to work properly. Now you'll notice that I have some additional resources in the minus this resources section and the plus these resources section. Let me show you how I got those there. So let's say I want to remove a particular book. Here's a resource I just don't want to have. So I'm going to left click on that resource, and I'm going to drag it on top of minus these resources. And as soon as I release my mouse, that book is removed from the list below, and it's added to the minus these resources. So that's how you can go through your list and remove those items that you didn't want. Now, to add a book that you know is in your library but did not show up because of the rule, you simply go to the library icon. You find the book, and again, I'm just going to grab one at random here. I'm just going to grab the first book in the list here. So I'm going to left click on this 0162, and I'm going to drag it off the library browser. The library browser window will close, and now I can let go of the mouse on top of plus these resources. And now this resource has been added to my collection. Now, the reason we do this minus and plus is because sometimes the rule can't get us all the way. There's always some books that are added that we don't want, and there's always some books not added that we do want. And so using this combination of minus and plus resources allows us to further refine the collection to have only those books that we want. And this is a very important strategy when studying the Psalms. You really do want to make sure that only the books that you need are in this list. So anytime you make a rule, make sure you go through that list and remove and add what you need. Wonderful. I like to click New first and then click the X on the tab to close the window. This will ensure that Logos will properly save the collection you just created. All right, so that's how you find out what's in your library regarding the topic of Psalm. Now, let's spend a few minutes on the recommended but not required resources. These books are not needed for tonight's webinar, but when I do a study, I sometimes come across some really useful resources that I think would be beneficial. First is the background commentaries. Anytime you study the book of Psalms, you need to know some background. It might be a national psalm. It might be an individual. It might not be David. It might be someone else. Who are they? How do we find out about them? What's the context by which this psalm was written? And that's where the background commentaries come in handy. So here's an Old Testament survey series by James Smith. I'm just going to click on it. And you can see here that it goes into some of the things about the book of Psalms, the Hebrew tradition, the Greek tradition, the background of the Psalms, and so forth. And so I have found this to be a nice resource giving you a quick background on the Psalms. Very useful. You also should have at least one significant outline book that goes into great detail on the Psalms. One of those is Roy Gingrich. Now, he has a series on all the outlines of every book of the Bible, but in particular, he has 4 books devoted to the Psalms. Now, these particular outlines are more detailed than you usually find in a commentary or even in a book like the Outline Bible. And that's why I'm recommending it. It's just such a helpful outline. And the outlines are, in a sense, teaching you the content as well as organizing the psalm itself. So you can see here in Psalm 1, the godly man, his character, negative, positive, his blessedness. The ungodly man, his character, his cursedness. So you can see how they're bringing out this parallelism even in the outline. And then there's some brief commentary or summary to help you understand what's going on. And then there's a lesson taught by this psalm, which is very useful. So I highly recommend his 4 books on the Psalms. Another one that's very useful is a concise commentary. Now, I'm a big fan of having a handful of these because concise commentaries sum it all up short and sweet. And when you're in a hurry to find some information, if you're, let's say you're coming to a passage you're not familiar with and you need a quick explanation or overview, that's where concise commentaries come to rescue. So here's a great example of the opening up, and we have Wisdom Psalms, a closer look, and then he'll go through and give you some background on some of these general psalms, and then we'll actually get into each of the psalms. So here's Psalm 1, and really in a couple pages, the whole psalm is summarized, just giving you the major points of the passage. Very useful. Now, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to work through each one of these. We're going to understand the authors of Psalms, the genre, the structures, the language. We're going to show you how to find additional cross-references and related passages. We're going to try to understand the meaning of the Psalms, praying through the Psalms, and applying the Psalms. So that's what we're going to do next. So let's move to number 5, and let's talk about the authors of the Psalms. Now, there's a new tool that's available. I'm going to show you that. So go to Tools, and then at the very far right, the last column, you should see the Psalms Explorer. Now, I'm going to make some room for this so it's very easy to read. Now, depending on when you use this, if you use this, you might walk into a middle of a psalm like I have. So what I'd like to do is locate that little chevron at the top, click it if it's collapsed like this, so it opens up, and then click back. And that puts us back at the beginning of the Psalm Explorer. Now, there's a lot of information here, and we'll talk about different aspects of this as we work our way through the tool. But the first one is the question, who are the authors? Turns out that Logos has already identified all the authors down below. We can see that David, there's anonymous, Asaph, again, David from the Septuagint, the Korarites, there's some anonymous, Haggai, Zechariah, Solomon, Ethan, Heman, and Moses. One way is to click over here, but don't do that just yet. At the top right, we can also choose by author. Now we can see more clearly. In fact, let me make a little more room so this is easier to view. Now we can see the organization of the Psalms by author. So if we float our mouse over the Korahites, we can see the handful of Psalms that they have published, and that's 12 of them. You can see the number 12 in gray just to the right. That's how we know how many Psalms there are. David, of course, has the most Psalms. What do? How do we get more information on the author? So what we're going to do is we're going to open a specific Psalm, and we're going to right-click on the name and jump over to the fact book. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and do a group that we're not so much familiar with, at Asaph. And I'm just going to pick Psalm 78. So I clicked on Asaph, and now I'm going to click on Psalm 78. So the Psalm comes up. Here it is, and we'll talk about all these other options in a minute here. So I'm just going to turn all these off so we just have the straight text. And I'm going to right-click on Asaph. Notice that we can right-click and interact with the text. We didn't have to jump to our Bible. Here's Asaph. He's a musician, and he's a person. If you click on him, we get access to the Factbook menu at the left. So I'm going to click on Factbook, and here is the information. Now, I've collapsed all the sections. Easiest place to go to find more information about a particular individual is in the dictionary section. So I'm going to click on that to expand it. But it's translated eat sometimes. We'll have to look more closely to see why that translation is different than the others. When you're doing word studies, zero in on that particular word, search to see where that word is used. Also, be aware of the sensitivity. Be aware of the emotions of the Psalter. This particular chart comes from what the Old Testament authors really cared about, a survey of Jesus' Bible, and I found this to be really helpful. Anger and rage, fear and sorrow, faith amidst danger, peace, gratitude, and worship. Look for these emotions. Also, watch out for similes and metaphors. So a simile is imagery that accomplishes these word pictures by means of a comparison. So it's like something else. Good example, Psalm 42:1 is the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you. There's that comparison. Another one, I take refuge in you, save and deliver me from all that pursue me, or they will tear me like a lion. So there's that comparison. Now, a metaphor is a little bit different. It's a comparison, but it's implied. For example, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. Notice it doesn't say is like a shepherd. And that imagery invokes ideas, it invokes emotions, it invokes a lot of content. And so to understand the psalm, you have to understand the similes and the metaphors. Now let's go ahead and create a custom guide. I want to do this real quickly for you as you're studying the Psalms. One of the problems with Logos 6 and even more so with Logos 7, there is way too much information being thrown at you. So one of the ways to control the information is to control the content, and you can do that through a custom guide. So let's go to Guides on the menu and click Make New Guide Template.